Hello and welcome to Age4 Pro League round of 16th in the qualifiers. Ethan fans, Erik+State and Kelazhur, 3 players with StarCraft 2 backgrounds, fighting it off against Genesis Gaming, Nyrox, Ravnok, and Black Widow. Genesis Gaming being a new organization in the AoE4 esports, they're looking to make their first step into the top 8 in a team game tournament. Age4 Pro League being a $20,000 free team game tournament sponsored by Microsoft, the first of its kind. With that being said, we're jumping into game number 1 on Dry Arabia. And we will have on the right side of the map Genesis Gaming versus the left side Eton fans. These games are casted from recorded games because in the second day of the qualifiers you had multiple live broadcasted sets, but due to multiple sets being parallel in order to have a nice and easy schedule, some sets were not broadcasted live. Those will be taken a look at right now from recorded games. So on the left side of the map, we will have Eden fans with Eric, Kelazhur, and State. To the north of the map, we'll have State playing as the Rus in purple. Down south, Eric is going to take the French in teal. And in the pocket, you will have the Mongols in the hands of Kelazhur using green. Other side, the pocket is going to be the Rus player in blue. To the north of him, it is going to be Black Widow playing as the French in red. And down south, we will have Ravnok playing as yellow Mongols. So the first difference that you see in the lineup of the two teams is that for Kelazhur's team, they're using their Mongol player as the pocket, and they will have their French as a flank. Whereas on the other side, the Rus player is going to take the pocket, and the French is also a flank civilization, but the Mongols will also be used as a flank. So normally, you want to have your cavalry civilization playing in the pocket because the cavalry player is supposed to be able to help on both sides because they are the ones with the mobility. But in this matchup, it also depends on how you're using your Mongols. If you're using your Mongols as a foot archer civilization early on, then you probably want it as a flank. If you want to go something like Mangodai, then you can definitely think about a pocket position for your Mongols. So that is a big decision point, and it looks like the way that Genesis Gaming approaches this game is that Nyrox is going to take the Rus in the pocket, which means that he's going to have an untouched fast castle with the Rus, whereas on the other side, the fast castle for State should mostly be untouched as well on the flank, but he's in a little bit more of an exposed position compared to his counterpart on the opposing team. As usual, with two Rus players on the battlefield, they'll be racing for the huntables, collecting that bounty, because that bounty is going to give them gold for every huntable deer and wolf killed on the map. So they're racing for that in order to get as much gold as they can, and of course, unlock new tiers of bounty, which will give them a nicer food getter rate. So that is the contest right now at the beginning of the game. 150 bounty for Nyrox, and if you compare that to State, he's at 195, so a bit of a head start over here for our purple player. Down south, we do have a barracks coming out for Ravnok, so he looks to be very aggressive in Dark Age with the Mongols, whereas on the other side, for Kelazhur, he's playing a lot more passive. His Ovu is right next to his town center, but there is no signs of aggression coming from him. With that barracks up for Ravnok, I would expect some sort of tower rush style approach to happen here, and trying to push Eric's base, and that could be dangerous given the fact that the French player, Eric, wants to play cavalry, so Spearman push against him could work nicely. The first batch of Spearman is already coming out for Ravnok. Meanwhile, 280 bounty in the hands of State already, whereas for Nyrox is sitting at 215. So once again, State is a little bit ahead compared to Nyrox when it comes to the bounty game. Golden Gate already coming in for both Rus players, and it looks like we're going to have the first couple of Spearmen coming out for Ravnok. Curious to see if there is going to be a villager pulled for a forward tower, and indeed, that is the plan for Ravnok. He wants to tower rush this gold mine, prevent the gold access from Eric. When you're up against the French, you're trying to cut off that gold access as fast as possible because the French player will want to play with knights, and if you can cut off the gold, you can prevent the French player from making knights. That's exactly the game plan over here for Ravnok. But Eric took the necessary steps to prevent such a thing from happening. He went for a preemptive defensive tower on his gold. It's a beautiful position as well. He knows exactly that he's going to have his landmark on the left side, and he's safer from the left than he is from the right. He's going to place the tower to the right of his gold mine, and you see he's also going to spot the villager, so he's looking to intercept the villager. There's a second villager coming out as well. Kelazhur's Khan is also here to help. Beautiful diagnosis from Kelazhur's team here, finding this forward, and both of those villagers are heavily damaged now. It's very possible that Kelazhur with a good micro on that con might even be able to pick off that villager, and this would be an absolute disaster for Revnok, losing 2 forward vills, and of course, if the villagers go down, those spearmen will have a minimal impact in the game because they don't perform that well against towers. Spearmen getting some nice hits on Erik's scout though, so Erik has to be careful not to lose that, but as things stand, those spearmen will be able to accomplish very, very minimal. And the villager, for now, will survive, but it's going to be very difficult to get a tower up here. And once you have Feudal Age for Erik and he pops out a knight, he can just charge in on the villager and kill it. Meanwhile, looking at the bounty, it's 435 for Nyrox, State is at 485, almost reaching that final 500 barrier. That's what you're targeting in a team game setting. You should have enough gold for the Rus players to get that, and indeed, we are getting there for State, so very nice start for him. And you see Kelazhur is using his con very effectively here, running around, running away from the spearman, and just keep taking some shots on that Vil. Another tower is attempted by Revnok, but this tower is barely doing anything, so I don't think that this is something that Erik has to be very worried about. Obviously, there could be a follow-up tower behind this one, so you gotta be careful. So if you finish this tower, the second tower could come up here denying the gold, so that could be a little concerning. But ultimately, the villager does get picked off by Kelazhur's con. Kelazhur is doing a beautiful job helping out his teammate. And now, Revnok's forward aggression is just going to be completely nullified. And now the con also being charged upon by the knights. Erik jumping into the tower, relaying a volley of arrows. And with that, Revnok is also going to lose his con. The spearmen will still be on the battlefield, but they're slowly being picked off by archers as well from Kelazhur. It's total domination from Kelazhur's team right now, because as things stand, Revnok's aggression did not accomplish anything. Revnok just now reaching Feudal Age, but of course, his counterpart, Kelazhur, has been in Feudal for some time, and he's been making archers, so he already has some map presence, might even be able to clean up all of those spearmen. On the other side of the map, we don't have that much fighting going on. A School of Cavalry is in for Black Widow. He wanted to go for a second stable early, and he's going for an early Chivalry for his knights. He's sending his knights across the map. For Erik, he's going to do something similar, going for the early Chivalry, but he doesn't have a second stable just yet. So his knight production won't be as good as the one from Black Widow. The two Rus players are, of course, going for a fast castle, or they're ferrying in the deer. So Nyrox is going to have a nice food eco underneath his town center. He does have 500 bounty as well, so he has reached that tier 3, which means that he's going to get the 15% bonus gathering rate. That's probably where you want to get to. 495 won't do any good for you here. You want to reach that tier 3. Anything above is a very nice extra, but 500 in a team game with the Rus should be your benchmark. State also faring in there right now, so I would expect comparable castle age times for both Rus players, and it's likely that we are going to see horse archers being played by both. Nyrox already rushing up the Abbey of the Trinity with 13 villagers. On the other side, it looks like State is a little delayed. Looking at his resource bank, he's a 200 foot short, so he's going to be a tiny bit delayed going into Castle Age, which will give a head start to Nyrox when it comes to gathering relics. Knights coming in from Erik, they are chasing back the scouts of Nyrox into the base. As things stand, not a single scout was taken down, and the Abbey of Trinity almost being completed will allow Nyrox to start picking up relics. There are quite a lot of relics on the map. I think it is 7. To be precise, which means that you should be able to get at least 3, ideally 4 or 5 relics for yourself if you're the Rus and you are the faster player to Castle Age. We also have State going into Castle, but he's only aging up with 11 villagers as compared to what used to be 13 from Nyrox. Nyrox immediately popping out the first Warrior Monk going for the relics. The biggest problem right now for Nyrox is that by rushing Castle Age, he's delaying his archer ranges, so this is a trade-off. Obviously, he's going to have the Warrior Monks out a little faster, so he's going to have a head start when it comes to collecting relics. But on the other hand, he's going to be delayed going into Horse Archers, whereas if you look at State, he is going to have 2 ranges up by the time he reaches Castle Age, ready to start producing Horse Archers. Not a ton of fighting going on ever since that initial aggression failed. Kelazhur with 6 kills, everyone else with minimal kills or losses. Looks like we're going to have 3 stables even for Erik, including the School of Cavalry, and he already has a blacksmith out. He's grabbing the defense upgrade for his knights. The idea is pretty simple. They know exactly that they are going to be facing quite a lot of horse archers, so you want to get that extra range defense on your knights. And with the support of Mongol archers, this could work out nicely. Nyrox is running into the archers, and that would be an absolute disaster losing that warrior monk. Another volley of arrows come out, and with that, the warrior monk falls. That is a disaster for Nyrox. Losing that warrior monk means that all the castle age advantage he had over State is now gone. Archers now slowly crawling up, and with only a minimal amount of horse archers out here for Nyrox, it's going to be very difficult to fight off all those foot archers. One of the most underappreciated things in H1 4 is that while horse archers are indeed very powerful, mass foot archers still beat them quite nicely, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. Kelazhur is denying the wood line of Nyrox at this point, which means that with no wood income, it's going to be very difficult to get any more horse archers out. You're going to need the help of your red teammate, Black Widow, but he's busy fighting Erik in the middle, so it's going to take quite a lot of time until Nyrox is going to be able to clean this up, unless Ravnok comes in with his own archers, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Ravnok is going to clean up Kelazhur's forces here. It's basically a 3 versus 1 for Kelazhur. Yellow, red, and blue units all on the screen, so Genesis Gaming converged upon this army and cleaned it up. Meanwhile, behind this one, Kelazhur is dropping towers on the sacred sides, and it makes me wonder if we're going to see them just going for the sacred side victory here. Now, keeping control over the sacred sites for 10 minutes is next to impossible, but obviously that would at least force your opponent to make a move. So in this map, I think you can't really think about the actual sacred site victory, but you can take 2 or 3 sacred sites and just live off from the gold recall that you're getting from there. As things stand, not a single relic for State. He's prioritizing the sacred sites for the time being. Looking at Castle Ages, we only have 2 players in Castle, and in terms of resource banks, neither of the players are really close to clicking up. Quite a decent amount of knights here for Black Widow as they do pass a teal knight from Erik. We do have towers being placed left and right by Kelazhur. This obviously will increase the EM speed network aura he has, so his units will move very fast across the map, which will make it very easy to reinforce battlefields. And it looks like he's on the way to Castle Age with the step redoubt, also dropping another archer range in the barracks. This could be a combination of men-at-arms and archers, but it's a weird combination, I would say. I would love to see Mangodai from him, which is an expensive unit, but especially with the YAM speed network giving you extra mobility, it could be a very useful unit on the battlefield. The other Mongol player is not aging up just yet. Ravnak is gonna be a tiny bit behind compared to his counterpart. Kelazhur, up to castle, so let's see what he has on his mind. He's still making archers, and the barracks will be utilized to do nothing. The range is not doing anything right now either, so we'll have to look back in a couple of moments to see what's up. Knights coming in here from Erik, though. That is a ton of dead villagers from Black Widow. His reaction was a little too slow because, as you see, that was at least 5 dead bodies right next to that town center. Black Widow, instead of going to Castle Age, she wanted to go for a second town center. Now, given the fact that that second town center will be finished soon, he will be able to compensate for those losses, but he's going to be set back for a brief moment. Horse archers from State also heading north. Wouldn't be surprised to see him trying to get some more villager picks before that town center goes up, but it's going to be a little too late for him. Meanwhile, we do have the veteran spearman armor upgrade coming in, so the idea for Kelazhur is probably that his archers are quite exposed to the knights of Black Widow, so might as well mix in some spearmen to help that. Knights now charging in for Erik, trying to jump on the archers. Speed arrow will be popped by Ravnok to pull all the forces back, and it looks like Nyrox is also in a full retreat. Horse archer numbers seem to be quite even, but keep in mind that behind this one, you already have 1 relic, 1 sacred site for State, and on the other side, 2 relics for Nyrox, so very even in that department. Knights coming in from Black Widow to do some damage on Erik's base, but it looks like not a single villager was picked off. Nice reaction by Erik down south of his base. Kelazhur keeps dropping the towers all across the map to increase his aura. We do have a market in the corner for Kelazhur that has not been used to anything, but I wonder if he's ever gonna try getting some trade going, which is always something that you can think about, especially with the Mongols and the YAM speed network. Speaking of which, this tower is not going up for Kelazhur. That will be denied by the Knights of Black Widow. In the middle, 1 sacred site in the hands of State. The one down south does have a tower up for Kelazhur, but it's not being taken right now by State, so he's probably prioritizing the relics at this point. Up north, professional scouts still operating at full capacity for Nyrox, trying to swoop up the remaining huntables. And now State moves in and grabs the second sacred site. With that, if he has that, and of course the one down south, that would trigger the sacred site countdown and force their opponents to make a move. Knights from Erik should be able to chase down the force of Black Widow. We'll see if there is any kind of units coming from the other side to finish these off a little faster. Look at the network of towers coming all across the map here for Kelazhur, and you also see State coming in with those Rus fortified palisade walls, so they want to start limiting the movement of the opponents with towers all across the map, giving a ton of vision to Kelazhur. Just look at this vision that he has. It is perfect. And of course, with those walls up on the north, it's going to be more and more difficult for Nyrox's team to do any kind of raiding. Bit of fighting going on as the Knights from Eric try to do some raiding, but as things stand, the Horse Archers and the Knights should be able to repel them. Eric and Black Widow, the two French players, are the only two players not in Castle Age just yet. Everybody else has already reached Castle. As things stand, Genesis Gaming is holding on quite nicely. Second town center up for Black Widow. Let's talk about his villager count for a brief moment. He's at 47 as opposed to Eric being at 49. So, despite the fact that Black Widow did lose a couple of villagers, ultimately, 2 town centers versus 1 will allow him to compensate. And we do have Castle Age coming in for Eric. He's going up with the Royal Institute. This is more and more common in team games because this landmark allows you to get all French unique upgrades independent of age with a discount. So you can grab Royal Bloodlines, which is an Imperial Age upgrade, for your knights in Castle Age. That is a gigantic power spike with 35% extra health for units. And it looks like we're going to see some cheese here from State. They're realizing that one thing that they could do is just vol in all the sacred sites, and you see that's exactly what is happening. State is voling in the sacred sites, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that one being done for the other two as well indeed. One down south is already being voled in. Not all of them are captured, but once you have them captured and voled in, it's going to be a little more difficult for your opponents to neutralize them. Of course, it's not impossible to break in, but it's going to take some time as a monastery comes in for Nyrox. He wants to get some more relics in. He's on 3 already, and that is number 4 coming in for him. On the other side, State has only 3, but he built a monastery, so he probably is confident that he's going to get a 4th. A vault on the north will be denied for the time being. But as things stand, the sacred sites will be walled in. And that's probably going to be the case for the one in the middle as well. Bit of fighting going on near the base of Revnok. Revnok's Ovu being quite exposed. This could allow Eric to try and burn it down. And losing that Ovu would be painful for Revnok. Revnok has no forces nearby, so that Ovu is going to go down, it seems. Up north, we do have some scouts still working on Deer, but ultimately, Deer is starting to run low on the map. Some Lancers now coming in from Revnok to repel the attack of Eric, and it looks like Eric will be forced away from that Ovu in the end. Reaction was just enough from Revnok to scare away those forces. He will probably have to keep some Lancers here, though, because if he disengages, then Eric is going to come back, and you see Eric has a hidden scout in that stealth forest. So he knows exactly that the opponent left, and he's probably going to turn back and try to burn that one down again. In the middle, Knights are clashing into each other. The numbers are better for Black Widow, but these are still Feudal Age Royal Knights as opposed to Castle Age Royal Knights for Eric. Of course, Horse Archer numbers looking pretty decent, and Mongols being able to utilize the fact that they can build siege weapons on the battlefield help a lot. You could hide that Mongol in that stealth forest and surprise your opponents like that. Most of the units for the Mongol players are archers, although Kelazhur is mixing in quite a lot of crossbowmen, so those will be very effective against the Royal Knights. A couple of Royal Knights swooping in from Black Widow to do some damage in the eco of State. Minimal damage is caused, though. Ultimately, the Royal Knights will be taken down. And now the main question is, when Black Widow gets to Castle Age, the answer is soon. He's going up with the Guildhall, though, and that's the big difference. You see, Royal Bloodlines coming in for Eric is just a massive power spike. His Knights will go from 230 HP to 310, so enormous power spike out there for Eric. And that basically means that even in the case of an even number scenario with the Knights, his forces will be just much more powerful. Looks like we do have a decent amount of Horse Archers for both players. HP upgrade is in for both as well. So the quality and the quantity of those Horse Archers are identical, but you will have way better French Knights for Eric. So I kind of feel like at this point the army advantage is on the side of Kelazhur's team. Mangonos already shelling that School of Cavalry. Behind this one, remember that not only are they pushing the base of Black Widow, there is a legitimate chance that they will trigger that Sacred Site countdown in a matter of moments. Battering Ram also joined the party alongside the 2 Mangonos, and that means that the School of Cavalry is about to get taken down. Knights burning down the School of Cavalry. At this point, you're waiting for that Veteran Knight upgrade. For Black Widow, you see that is just now coming in on that stable, but even then, his Knights will be at 230 HP as opposed to 310. This is why you're grabbing the Royal Institute, which is an expensive upgrade to have the Royal Bloodlines in. But once you have that, you're gonna be able to destroy any kind of army in your way, pretty much, with those knights. Those knights are also swooping into raid, and now I feel like Eric's team is in a commanding position. They are raiding Revnok's base. They do have 3 sacred sites, so the sacred site countdown is going on, and they are the aggressors inside the base of Black Widow as well. Those green rams from the Mongols also give 50 food and 50 gold each for Kelazhur for every single building that was set on fire. And now I feel like we are waiting for the big clash here. Mangonels setting up right now for Kelazhur, beautifully surrounded by the horse archers. Look at the mass of horse archers on both sides here. It is way bigger at this point for State. There is another batch of horse archers coming in from the other side though for Nyrox. Crossbows also joined the party, but as things stand, you only want to use your Teal Knights as an arrow sponge. Mangonels getting a volley out, getting some nice hits on top of those horse archers. It looks like Genesis Gaming might be able to repel this attack. Some towers also crawling up here for Kelazhur, but the Knights coming back to charge in. Both sides losing significant amount of Knights, but most of the Lancers for Revnok are gone, and this was a massive difference maker for Eric's team, because Kelazhur had some crossbowmen and Revnok's forces were mostly Knights, so the crossbowmen did a quick work with them, and that's part of the reason why they were winning that fight. Because you had crossbows versus knights, and that is something that the crossbows will be able to win. Now the Mangonels are shelling villagers underneath the town center of Black Widow, so Black Widow is going to start losing economy. And behind this one, keep in mind, you have sacred sites that are about to get walled in, so it's going to be very difficult to neutralize them. Some knights also swooping into the base of Nyrox, and the raids that are being done are just too big now, I feel like, for Genesis Gaming to overcome. There were some raids inside the base of Revnok, now you have some raids inside the base of Nyrox, and you have a massive direct push coming in here from Kelazhur, supported by, of course, the forces of State and Eric. Stables are being brought down, so replenishing that army is going to be very difficult for Black Widow. And right now, it's not just the quality problem of those knights being way weaker than the ones from Eric, it's also the numbers problem, because as things stand, you have way better numbers for Eric's team in terms of military, and they have a commanding position on the map right now. Way better economies for them, and what's even more significant, as I said, is that their army is just much more powerful. That extra town center that was built by Black Widow is now being taken down. The initial town center still stands, so does the guild halls, so Black Widow isn't going to get defeated. And I do believe that Nyrox's team is right now waiting for one decisive fight. They are hoping for some big Mangonel hits that will wipe out this army of horse archers, giving them a chance to potentially take a good fight and drag this game out a little longer, because if you're Genesis Gaming, you want to drag this game out as long as possible because you have a long recovery to make. Only 2 stables stand at this point for Black Widow. He's gonna have to replenish his entire production at the back of his base, but you just see no signs of that at this point. Obviously, his economy is being steamrolled, and they will soon have to take this fight. Mangonels setting up against the Knights. Eric will spot that there's multiple Mangonels out here, so I wouldn't even be surprised to see a change of target here for Eric's team, but they have their own firepower out here with 4 Mangonels, so they don't have to be ashamed of fighting this. Another charge of Knights coming in here by Revnok, but this is why the crossbowmen are just so impactful here. They're just going to decimate those yellow Knight numbers so easily. Springolds also setting up for Kelazhur. Springolds will make quick work with those Mangonels, and with that, Mangonels are gone for Nyrox. Numbers are just looking way better for Eric, Kelazhur, and State, and they're just grinding down the remaining forces of Genesis Gaming. In all certainty, Genesis Gaming is going to tap out, and indeed they do. Nyrox, Revnok, and Black Widow taken down in game number 1. Beautiful gameplay by both sides, and it really went down to small differences. Part of that being the decision from Black Widow to go for the 2 town center build as opposed to an earlier Castle Age, and also the fact that he went up with the Guild Hall instead of the Royal Institute, and that Royal Institute power spike was massive for Eric. We'll take a look at the statistics in a matter of moments, but it is a game number 1 victory for Eric, State, and Kelazhur, and with that, they take the lead and they move to match point in this best of 3. So, looking at the statistics, I'm going to show you in a matter of seconds. Here we go. Looking at the statistics, if you look at the villager counts, these were pretty close all around. No major drops out here. The bigger problems were the military numbers. State just had a gigantic army number. Don't get confused on the colors. This is something that freaks out when you use recorded game colors. So these colors are not actually right or not the same as the ones in game, but you have to take a look at the names down here. So State having the largest army numbers with the Horse Archers as opposed to Nyrox, the other Horse Archer player, constantly better Horse Archer numbers for State over his counterpart. And of course, Kelazhur having just a massive army of crossbowmen, archers, and mangonels. I feel like the biggest problem for Genesis Gaming was that failed tower rush for Revnok set him back quite a bit compared to Kelazhur. So the Mongol player was a tiny bit ahead for Ethan fans, and I think the Rus player also was a tiny bit ahead. French was quite a bit ahead, and the combination of all of those elements meant that Ethan fans take game number 1. This also means that we're going into the home map of Genesis Gaming. They can choose from Highview, Danube River, or Hillendale. Their home map of choice will be Danube River. So in we go into game number 2. It is once again Nyrox, Black Widow, and Revnok versus Kelazhur, State, and Erik. State, Kelazhur, and Erik with a 1-point lead right now in this best of 3. If they win the series and move into the top 8 of AoE4 Pro League, the first major 3v3 Age of Empires 4 tournament. Welcome to game number 2 in this best of 3 in between Genesis Gaming and Ethan fans. On the left side of the map, we will have Erik, Kelazhur, and State coming in. Kelazhur is going to be playing in yellow as the English. In the pocket, you will have Erik playing as the Holy Roman Empire in teal. And down south, you're going to have State playing purple with the Delhi Sultanate. On the other side, you will have a Delhi Sultanate pick as well, I do assume. And that is not there. A little surprising on this map, a map where Delhi Sultanate is so popular, because that basically is a must-have in order to prevent your opponent destroying your fishing eco in Dark Age. So if you don't go for Delhi, your opponent will, and you're going to be in trouble. Nyrox decided to go for the Abbasid dynasty. In the pocket, they will have Black Widow playing as the Chinese, and they will have English as well for Revnok in red. I kind of like the Chinese choice quite a bit over here, but I feel like they should have had at least one Delhi player out here. So personally, I would have preferred having Delhi over the English, simply because now, if you don't have any Delhi players, what's going to happen is that the opponent's Delhi player, which is State, is going to move a couple of fishing ships forward and just harass your fishing eco all day, all night. You already have a dock out here for Nyrox with the Abbasids. Having a cheaper dock obviously helps quite a bit when it comes to affording it. And you already have some engagements going on. State coming in, trying to deny that dock. Looks like the scout of Revnok is coming back, but the villager does go down, so the dock is going to be delayed. Borderline denied at this point. Quite annoying of a problem right now for Revnok. And you see, this is the power of the Delhi here. You can have your villager out here and your fishing ships will protect her. So that's a massive advantage over there. You see that Nyrox is moving out with 2 scouts, trying to look for some more villagers to intercept. If he's lucky, he might be able to find Erik's villager to pick off. In come the scouts. Right now, Erik is going to have to make a run for it. He is kind of far away from the water with his base, so I'm not exactly sure if this villager will get back. Looks like they will retarget and try to kill the scout of Kelazhur. Kelazhur is going to have to disengage here because there is no way that he's going to win that fight. On the side of Genesis Gaming, you do have Black Widow, Nyrox, and Revnok all with their dogs, and this was the game plan here for Nyrox. So they skipped using the Delhi Sultanate here, which leaves their fishing eco exposed. One thing that you can do is make a tower here, and that's going to make it more difficult for the opponent to push your own fishing eco. Now, one thing that you have to be careful about, though, is that the enemy combat ships can just run past or sail past that tower, which means that they can just sail past that tower and still hit your teammates' fishing eco, so you have to be careful about that one. As things stand, we do have a fishing economy for everybody but Kelazhur. Kelazhur is going full land eco. He's going for longbows. On the other side, Revnok, being an English player, still went for a dock and a couple of fishing ships. I kind of like that approach because the fishing eco pays off so easily, so fast, that it makes some sense to go for a couple of fishing ships, even if you don't really intend to contest the water that much. Vols coming in here for State. Wouldn't be surprised to see some Vols coming up on the other side by Revnok as well, because you're expecting longbowmen from the English players, as we do have Black Widow coming in with a scout, trying to harass Kelazhur's villager. Another scout comes in, so Kelazhur is going to have to run back to the town center. Now, luckily for Kelazhur, he has gathered enough gold for Feudal Age, so losing access to that gold mine temporarily isn't going to be the end of the world, but obviously it's quite annoying for him at this point. Once he's got 2 longbowmen out though, he should be able to scare away those scouts, no problem. Looking at the Delhi player State, so far he's been playing quite passive, no aggression with those fishing ships. Usually, you move out with your fishing ships after Dark Age, so as you're going up to Feudal, you pull all your fish and you try to push the opponent's fishing eco. With this tower round, I don't think it's really worth it. You just want to play standard and leverage the fact that you do have a Delhi player that has no technology or no cost on their technologies. Obviously, it's going to take quite a lot of time for them to research, but you can save a ton of resources and convert those into combat ships, so that's something that you can consider. This being said, as you do have Nyrox harassing that villager building the gate out here, will be saved by State's fishing boat. But this being said, if you are Erik, Kelazhur, and State, you don't want to play a long game here, because Black Widow, he's Chinese. You don't want to play a very long game against Chinese, because at some point they will get to Fire Lancers. With a fishing eco, it is very easy to afford a 2 town center, potentially even 3 town center Song Dynasty boom for the Chinese, so wouldn't be surprised to see a very economy heavy approach here for Black Widow, just trying to boom up and then get to Fire Lancers. He is not on stone right now, but he's going up with the Imperial Academy. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Barbican of the Sun being placed close to that dock to protect the fishing eco a little more, and then work probably towards Castle Age first, and then at the second town center, we'll have to see how that goes for him. Dome of Fate coming in right now for State. Simultaneously, he's building a mosque right next to it. In the pocket, we do have Erik going up with the Akhund Chapel. That's a beautiful position to cover the gold miners, lumberjacks, and also the villagers underneath the town center. And for Kelazhur, minimal amount of forces coming out of that council hall. Just now seeing the first couple of longbows popping out. Actually, I was wrong. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. There's a couple of longbows out here already, and that is going to be the first villager being picked off from Black Widow. Part of the reason why you see longbows being a popular unit and English being a popular civilization on this map is because the longbows, with their extra range compared to archers, give you a very nice and early tool to push the opponent's fishing eco. So you can do quite a lot of harassment, and that's exactly what you're seeing over here. Another sneaky villager is out here for Black Widow, hiding in the shadows, just to kill the wolf. But now, as you see, archers are being pulled up, towers are also being made, so you already have some idle time on the fishing eco of Revnok. I think that this villager is moving towards the fishing eco of State here, trying to get a tower up there. It's going to be attacked by another wolf, and it has already fought off one wolf, so I don't think it's going to survive encounter with the second one. We'll have to see. I think he might be able to, but he has to be very careful not to run into that third wolf. And in the end, Black Widow pulls that villager back, so whatever he wanted to do there is not going to work out. Tower already coming up for Kelazhur here. And with that tower up, he's also expanding his network of castles bonus, so he's gonna have the extra fire rate on those longbows. For now, Revnok is running for a corner, trying to relocate his fishing eco, but that's the convenient thing here with the longbows. You can just pursue those fishing ships all day, all night. Towers coming up from Revnok at the back of Nyrox's docks. These are preemptive towers, making sure that their opponents can't get towers up behind those docks. You do have some walls for Black Widows, so there is no way for the opponents to pass, and it looks like we'll have another tower coming in from Revnok. Will probably be followed by even a dock, and then just try to push the fishing eco of State. As things stand, if you look at the fishing economies, Erik's got 800 per minute, by far the best in the game. State's got 600. Kelazhur is quite low because he's not fishing, but ultimately, the two players that are fishing have a quite spectacular fishing eco compared to, let's say, Revnok, who has been harassed quite a bit. So these longbows are doing work because there's a lot of idle time on the fishing eco of Revnok. The first couple of combat ships are sailing north. We do have 2 dhows coming in from the Abbasid player, but the walls have not been gated just yet. So unless you delete these walls out here, the combat ships can't pass. There is the villager coming in for the gate, and I do assume This was the initial plan with Black Widow, but he had to call it off because he bumped into multiple wolves. Longbows still doing quite a bit of harassment over here, and you see these fishing ships are barely able to accomplish anything. A new dock is up, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Kelazhur already being aware of that. Indeed, he sees the dock, he's going to pull the longbows back. I think the best thing that you can do here for Revnok is make one combat ship, a galley, because the galley would at least push away the longbows. It wouldn't be able to kill the towers, but it would push away the longbows, and you see, these longbows are no joke. They do sink your fishing ships quite rapidly. Looks like, in the end, the walls are just deleted. I do assume that the initial plan was to play with palisades and a gate, and now they will be replaced by stone walls, so Black Widow really wants to prevent any kind of combat ship passing by, and now you have Nyrox coming in with 2 dows. There's a defensive tower up here, so it's gonna be a little easier for State to hold off this push, but he doesn't have a single combat ship himself. He only has his fishing ships, which for the Delhi Sultanate can fire arrows, but you see the main defensive structure is going to be the tower. Towers should be able to deal quite well with combat ships, so you don't have to worry about much if you have a tower near your fishing eco. Behind this one, we haven't really talked about the town center that is coming up right now for Black Widow. I don't think that he's got a Barbican of the Sun yet, so he's probably still Tang Dynasty and no song for him just yet. Longbows dispatched by Revnok to try and clean up the longbows of Kelazhur, but this is gonna be difficult because you see, there's already outposts out here with arrow slits, so even though there is not a single unit garrisoned inside, these towers will take some shots, and right now Kelazhur's ball of longbows is just very nice. He's got multiple towers out here, all grabbing the arrow slits upgrade. So his position here, right next to this river, is quite powerful. He's denying the entire fishing economy of Revnok. Now, is this that problematic for them? I don't think so, simply because Kelazhur himself doesn't even have a single fishing ship, so I don't think Kelazhur's economy is that much better than Revnok's one. But still, definitely annoying for Revnok at this point. We do have a galley out for Erik, trying to fend off those dows that were harassing the villagers of State before. And it looks like Nyrox is crawling up with another tower here near the shoreline. Oh, look at that. We are looking to have some cheese over here because Black Widow is going to start making stone walls around that sacred site. And I think that's probably going to be the plan around the other one as well. That's a little more difficult to pull off with all those towers nearby. But the idea is that they want to stonewall in the sacred sites and then just capture them. And then it's going to be pretty difficult for the opponent to take them back. Not impossible, but it's going to take some time. On the other hand, State already has a scholar moving up here. So unless these walls are completed, the scholar is going to be able to take that sacred site. Now the villager can fight the scholar and the scholar can't really fight back. So that's something that you can consider over here. But it's going to be a little difficult to prevent that scholar from taking that sacred site now. Meanwhile, fishing eco for Nyrox still operational. He's on the way to Castle Age with the culture wing. He has been on 1 town center. You do have 2 town centers for Black Widow going up to Castle Age with the clock tower, and he now has the Barbican of the Sun working as well. He's still heavy on the stone, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a 3rd town center. It's more likely that we're going to see something like a keep or so. And it looks like the scouts from Black Widow do come back, so State is going to have to run away with that scholar. His best chance to save the scholar would be to find a relic and try to get a conversion, but I feel like he has to just acknowledge the fact that this scholar is probably dead. Meanwhile, Revnok does have some sort of fishing eco going for him, but it's fairly minimal. It's slowly being cleaned up, so he will have to think about other forms of acquiring food. He's going up to Castle Age with the King's Palace, so that's going to be his 2nd town center. And I would expect something very similar from Kelazhur, who is still in Feudal Age. Or in the end, does get cleaned up by Black Widow's forces. And with Black Widow finishing those stone walls, he can now think about grabbing that sacred site. In fact, he deletes some of the foundations and rebuilds his wall on north. So wouldn't be surprised to see some walls coming from the other side as well. The whole idea is that you want to make sure that those sacred sites don't fall into the hands of the Delhi player, because Delhi players benefit from it quite a bit compared to other civilizations. Behind this one, we haven't talked about Erik, who, being the Holy Roman Empire, already has 3 relics in the Regnis Cathedral, has the Aachen Chapel, and aged up to Imperial Age with the Palace of Swabia, standard fast Imperial 1 town center build from the Holy Roman Empire player, and we got multiple siege workshops coming in, likely for a couple of bombards, because one of the power spikes that you're getting with the Holy Roman Empire is that you're up to Imperial Age, and despite the fact that your economy, when you get up to Imperial Age, isn't powerful, you will still be able to afford 1 or 2 bombards, and that can be a massive power spike, being able to destroy buildings so fast against opponents that are still all in Castle Age. So if you get some escort from your teammates, like a bunch of longbows for example, you could easily get a couple of bombards out and you can just destroy those docks in 5 seconds. Speaking of those longbows, you already have that, and you see State is coming in with the other strategy that Delhi love to use here, which is using the compound of the defender and making forward towers. That's exactly what you're seeing over here. A Bugla is out from Nyrox to try and stop this, but this is the power of the compound of the defender, because with that landmark, your army, men-at-arms, spearmen, archers, can also make stone fortifications, which means that you don't have to sacrifice villagers here. You can just send the men-at-arms and make the tower. These towers fire the old spring odes, which means that they do 60 damage apiece, and of course the bonus damage against fishing ships. And with that, they are able to take down outposts as well, quite nice and easy. And of course, the fishing eco, multiple towers coming in for State, and that's exactly what he's planning. And with those towers up, it's also impossible for Black Widow to capture the sacred site in the middle. So even if they have this one on the left side, they won't be able to trigger a victory. Fishing ships being picked off by longbowmen. One thing that you have to be careful about though is demolition ships, and given how crazy the range of demolition ships are nowadays, one of the best things that you can do is go for demolition ships to destroy those towers. In particular, that works best with the Holy Roman Empire if they get the explosives upgrade, because in Imperial Age, alongside the fact that you have bombards, you also grab the explosives upgrade for your demolition ships, increasing their damage output, and that just makes them extremely powerful, borderline overpowered. They look like nuclear torpedoes. A single blast can destroy entire armies, so they're already very powerful in Castle Age, but Imperial Age, they are just absolutely deadly, so that is also a very nice touch as well when you go for a fast Imperial with the HRE. It's not just the bombards, it's also the demolition ships, and you will see a demonstration of that very soon. Demolition ship sailing up here. Wouldn't be surprised to see them trying to intercept that ball of longbows. It's only one demo, but you gotta be careful about this one still. And losing that ball of longbows to a demolition ship is a game over style moment. Here comes the demolition ship for Eric. It's crawling closer and closer to the shoreline. Longbows will react to that one. Longbows taking a shot, and oh my goodness, that's exactly what I was referring to. Just look at that. The distance between the longbowmen and the demolition ship was about 5-6 tiles, basically the range of those longbowmen, which is 7 tiles. And despite the fact that the longbows managed to pick off the demolition ship, it still managed to sink like 15-20 longbowmen. And that was a single demolition ship, out of which Eric can make dozens in the next couple of minutes. Obviously, every civilization is going to be able to do that in Imperial Age, but the magic here for the Holy Roman Empire is that he's already up to Imp, and that just means that he has Imperial Age demolition ships when no one else has any other Imperial Age units on the battlefield. Bombards also coming out. This is exactly how you want to use your Imperial Age power spike for Eric, and you see the duality. Kelazhur is the only player that's not in Castle Age even, but he's focusing a lot on the Feudal Age army. He's got a huge Feudal Age army. Eric is the one that's in Imperial. He's still building up his army right now, or his eco, excuse me. But when it comes to army, he's got a lot of Imperial Age siege. So you have a lot of Feudal Age units, and you have a lot of Imperial Age siege, and some Castle Age units. And that's probably a better combination than just having free players in Castle Age, because the free Castle Age opponents don't have access to any Imperial Age weaponry that could easily deal with those bombards, for example. So the bombards are crawling up, setting up in this position. They're not really able to do that much out there. A couple of knights coming in to raid though, so nice counterattack by Nyrox. He has managed to get a Lancers out, and he will do some damage to Eric's base. Keep in mind that Eric's got the Palace of Schwabia working for him, so replenishing those villagers takes about a minute or two, unless he loses dozens and dozens. But that shouldn't really happen. It's still a little annoying, simply because at this point, there isn't really much of an army here for Eric to defend against this. So you see he's actually scrambling for defense, and it's starting to get a little worrisome for him to lose all those villagers out here. He needs to lure those knights closer to his town center so the town center can clean them up. Now a couple of spearmen come in from State. It's like, I'm helping. These are Dark Age spearmen against Castle Age Lancers, and that was a ton of villagers killed in the end. Eric is down to 70. Now should that concern him? Heck no, because he's got the Palace of Schwabia, so every single villager that was killed is only 12 food and 5 seconds to retrain. Not the end of the world. We do have some walls coming in here from State to prevent further raids like that, as we will have Kelazhur losing a couple of villas as well. Now, you have to be careful about that though, because Kelazhur's army, or eco, is not that great. But behind this one, this direct push is a lot scarier, and the Chinese player, the player that has been on free town centers apparently, and of course Song Dynasty, is going to get steamrolled before he can get some Fire Lancers out. The Fire Lancers are just not being assembled. Black Widow is up to Imperial with the Spirit Way, so in 3-4 minutes, the Fire Lancers will be fully upgraded, and they will be a massive force to deal with. But I feel like this window is still there for Eric and his team being able to clean up the Chinese player, or at least do significant damage on him before the Fire Lancers appear in masses. But here we go. Here comes the big cavalry charge. One thing that you could have done with those tower foundations already up on the walls is march up on the walls with the longbowmen. That could have been the absolute jackpot move, because then the Fire Lancers can't hit you. This looks like it's a great engagement for Genesis Gaming. You do have the Fire Lancers moving in, trying to intercept the bombards. Longbows with veteran upgrade for Revnok, no upgrades on Castle Age for Kelazhur. There is one elephant that's going to absorb a lot of arrow fire, but I love how Genesis Gaming is focusing the longbows. They just ignore the elephant because they can clean it up later. Focus on the retreating army and just do as much damage as you can. Bombards returning and getting some volleys out here, but ultimately, I feel like this was a win here for Genesis Gaming. Most of the Fire Lancers are gone, but the most important thing is that they made sure that their Chinese player survives. So in the next few minutes, we could see the Fire Lancers appearing in larger numbers. Now, Mangonels will also join the fun over here, and now you have to be very careful if you're Revnok, especially because that's still a lot of firepower out here. We're talking about 9 bombards and 2 Mangonels, and with that much elephant and longbowman support and just minimal forces on the battlefield for Genesis Gaming right now, this could be a quite worrisome army to deal with. Looks like the team of Eric was able to clean up all aggression inside their bases, so now they can focus all of their attention over here. And as things stand, longbows are holding strong for Revnok, but you already have towers scrolling up for Kelazhur, which means that his network of castles bonus will be expanded over here. He also has 1 scout in this army, supported by a sheep, so Benny the sheep is joining the party over here, help out his fellow comrades. Would you look at that? 9 Mangonels, or 9 bombards and 2 Mangonels. Stonewalls foundations once again coming in for State. He's slowly crawling up with those Stonewall towers. That's something that you see more and more from Delhi players, sort of this trench warfare, because it's much easier to build these towers than to destroy them, so it makes sense to just rush up a couple of spearmen, sacrifice them if needed, and go for towers. Now, one thing that you have to be careful about is that the Delhi spearmen can't brace, which means that the Fire Lancers will be able to charge in no matter what. Stonewalls almost completed. Towers coming in for State right after that. Just look at that firepower. 10 bombards, 4 Mangonels. You gotta be very careful if you're Revnok, because your entire army could be wiped out by that artillery out here for Eric. His population is basically just villagers and siege weapons. They're pretty much controlling the river. They haven't really bothered cleaning up the docks over here, so these are still intact, but they're slowly being crippled by the Stonewall Tower, so it's not the end of the world to have them stay up. And it looks like the siege is now moving towards the base of Revnok. Revnok is coming in with a couple of Stonewalls. You already have an attempt to make some Stonewalls over here for State, but that's going to be cancelled. And here comes the Mangonel push. The Fire Lancers started moving to the left side, so I do believe that Black Widow wants to make a push on the opponent's landmarks, the Fire Lancers, but that's a risky call, because if they can't snipe the landmarks, this army is going to steamroll them, and you kind of need those Fire Lancers back home to deal with all that artillery. Fire Lancers moving to the far left. This will be spotted by a Karak from Eric. Speaking of that Karak, he tried to blast his way through these walls, and there is no stone walls right now from State, so he has to be very, very careful here, because those Fire Lancers can burn their way through those walls really fast. Mangonel slowly crawling up, some stone walls being built right now by Revnok. Here comes another batch of Fire Lancers, and you do have a decent amount of cavalry as well for Nyrox. Once again, the Delhi Spearmen being unable to brace means that those Fire Lancers are guaranteed to grab their charge, and even though you have a significant amount of longbowmen here, quite a lot of bombards as well, I kind of feel like Fire Lancers and the Knights over here could do a lot, and you do have Black Widow pouring in with the Fire Lancers. That's exactly what he wants to do, and when you're up against a Delhi Sultanate player, you just want to snipe down those landmarks out here. You probably want to focus the Delhi at this point, because he's probably the riskiest with those towers scrolling up. Everything else can be quite easily destroyed by a Fire Lancer charge. Speaking of which, here it comes. Fire Lancers could also take down... Can they take down Stonewall towers? That's a big question. Oh boy! What? What was that? Was that the Mangonel fire? I didn't see the rocks. This could be disaster. This could be an absolute disaster, because now All of those Fire Lancers are gone. On the other side, the Fire Lancers are going for the landmarks, though. The landmark snipe is coming in here for Black Widow, but the Spearmen are slowly crawling up, and you see State is pulling every single villager to repair those landmarks. Dome of Fate still standing, Town Center is still standing. State runs out of wood, but the Spearmen will clean up the Fire Lancers, whereas on the other side, the Bombard still stands strong. The Town Center of Black Widow is now gone, but here comes another batch of Fire Lancers, also supported by quite a lot of Knights, but those Mangonels are just doing way more work than I anticipated. They are doing an excellent job killing all those cavalry units. How many Mangonels is that? It's 6 Mangonels, so a single volley could potentially wipe out a group of cavalry, and now Black Widow has lost his army back at home, he's losing landmarks, and he lost his aggression inside the base of State. State almost lost the landmarks, but he scrambled his spearmen just enough to hold this off, repair the landmarks long enough for the spearmen to clean up that army, and that group of Fire Lancers being wiped out by the Mangonels could be massive, because now you see Black Widow's just got very, very minimal forces on the battlefield. It's only 15 units right now in terms of military, 85 eco. Neither of them are spectacular, and you see he already lost quite a lot of landmarks. He's got the Imperial Academy gone, he lost the Clock Tower, he's got his Town Center gone, Barbican of the Sun under fire, the Spirit Way and the Imperial Palace is still out there, so he's not gonna get defeated, but his population isn't looking spectacular, and right now you do have like a 70-80% map control for Erik, Kelazhur, and State, who are already in a match point position, so winning this game would basically mean that they win the set and move into the top 8 of AoE4 Pro League. Now those Mangonels are shifting to the right side. They're just looking to get a volley out on top of those Longbowmen. Springbolts will be the response from Revnok. Does he have the range upgrade? He doesn't, so that's going to make life a little more difficult, but he's slowly sniping down the Mangonels, so he's working towards cleaning this one up. Forward positions are being reinforced, though, by Kelazhur with keeps, and you see, while the Springbolts are slowly cleaning up the Mangonels, the Bombards are just destroying the base of Black Widow, and now I feel like the question is going to be what's going to be left out of the base of Black Widow if they manage to clean this up, because I think they will have the strength to clean this up, but Black Widow might be set back too much. Fire Lancers will jump on the siege weapons now. That's a massive miss micro by Erik and his teammates, because now all of those siege weapons are wide open for aggression, but the Mangonels could set up and get a volley on top of those Longbowmen. Looks like the Bombards will do that. Mangonels not in large numbers anymore, and the Fire Lancers will be able to deal with quite a lot of Bombards. Longbows now from Kelazhur coming in to snap the Fire Lancers, and you still have a keep coming up here, you still have Stonewall sections being built. I feel like at this point Black Widow is having a very hard time reinforcing his army, and part of that comes from the fact that the economy for Erik's team is just way better. So at this point you see Kelazhur 1600 food per minute, compare that to, let's say, Nyrox, who has to make Knights. Black Widow 1100, not bad, but it's not a ton either, and especially with Fire Lancers being decimated by those Longbowmen so fast, it's kind of difficult to replenish your Fire Lancers like that. He's down to 90 population, and behind this one, he doesn't really have a ton of economy left. He's still staying alive on that back foot, but they're being pushed back more and more because it is just much easier for Kelazhur's team to reinforce their armies, and that big ball of artillery is massive. With that volley of cannon fire, the landmarks go down, and with that, I think Genesis Gaming is going to tap out. The Spirit Way was gone, the Imperial Academy was gone, and with that, Black Widow gets knocked out of the game, and 2 versus 3, there is minimal chances of Genesis Gaming to win this one. Erik, State, and Kelazhur take game number 2 as well, and with that, the entire set falls into the hands of Ethan fans. They are the ones moving into the top 8. Before we tap out of this series, though, we will take a look at the statistics, so hold on for a brief moment while we bring that up. From Recorded Games, very convincing show of force from Kelazhur's team. Genesis Gaming played well, but I feel like they were a little bit outclassed in terms of skill. No shame in that, of course. Two teams, both of them playing standard, both of them tried to play meta, but maybe the civilization selections were slightly better for Kelazhur's team for the second game. The execution was slightly better in game number 1. So overall, slightly better players on the roster of Kelazhur, or they just had a better day and they were able to take over their opponents. So hold on for a brief moment. Here it is. So looking at the statistics, I feel like the biggest thing to look at is going to be gathered resources, which is quite spectacular for Black Widow, actually, 26,000 food. But when you look at gold, Erik with 23k gold, that's quite massive. And the other thing I want to look at is the kill death ratios. Erik with 203 kills, 50 deaths. That's quite spectacular as well, of course. The colors once again won't match the ones that you have seen in game, but Erik Still, 19 buildings destroyed, 0 lost, 203 kills, 50 lost. Don't look at this column, the largest army, because that is wrong. But aside from that, I think this kind of efficiency is something that definitely helped the team of Kelazhur move on. Kelazhur himself also had a very nice kill death ratio. Economy-wise, ultimately, Blackbeard had a ton of food gathered, but part of that, of course, was the English farming eco that he had to build up after the fishing eco was destroyed. But Eric with 23,000 gold, quite a bit in the bank, one of the things to consider. And of course, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that the Delhi Tower scrolling forward is something that helped a lot. So those stats won't necessarily show that much in this tab. Obviously, the killed units will, but in terms of losses, that's not going to show that much. It's not going to show even if the largest army column was working. And it's not going to be that flashy in the economy either, because those Stonewall sections are rather cheap for a late game economy, and they do quite a lot. So one thing that these stats don't tell us is the position on the map and just the map control advantage that the team of Kelazhur had. And with that, Kelazhur+State and Eric, the Ethan fans, will move on to round of 8, the quarterfinals of AoE4 Pro League.